So, like Minority Report. Arresting people, removing their rights before they commit a crime.
No, so not removing their rights before they commit a crime. It's going to be taking away their access to weapons that they can use to kill people, right? Or to commit
before they've killed anybody.
Abuse. Well, yeah, because
before they've committed crimes. So what you're proposing is looking for indicators that someone might commit a violent crime and removing their access to firearms before they commit it.
Yes.
How is that not Minority Report?
On with the show. Meet Michael and Sean, two students on opposing sides of the Second Amendment. Both were chomping at the bit to get in on any of our topics of the day, which isn't usually a good sign, but we hoped for the best.
I'm worried about you coming up. I'm really worried about you coming up. Like, seriously, I'm telling you, because usually when someone comes up who's as jazzed up as you are, it doesn't go very well.
All right, I can calm down.
Can you? Do you think you got reasonable arguments here that you can present? 100%. And you're not going to name call? You think you're ready? This guy seems pretty sharp, too. You're going to be going. You're going to be going up. He goes up on YouTube with a really sharp guy. You feel qualified to do the Second Amendment thing?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, my man.
All right. Right now, this is going to be on the Second Amendment. I'm pro-gun. Changed my mind, and we will let them go ahead and do it. Okay. What's your name, sir?
Michael.
Michael, come here and have a seat, sir. All right. And your name, sir, is
Sean.
Sean. Nice to meet you, Sean. Michael. Okay. So, Michael, you're familiar with this segment, how it works. State your position in the affirmative and allow Sean to change your mind.
So, Sean, I feel that the Second Amendment in the United States is critically important to both the security of the nation as well as the historical culture of the United States. And I feel that a lot of the measures taken or interest in restricting the Second Amendment further than it already is are generally unfounded.
Sure.
And I'd welcome you to change my mind.
Cool. So let's first talk about like the culture that it has within America. So you're saying that like, oh, the Second Amendment's critical because it's been historically important, but we can both agree that the Second Amendment's been pulled back as history's moved on in order to like adjust with societal changes, right? So like the Second Amendment as it is today theoretically can change tomorrow depending on what we think is best for society.
The Second Amendment as an amendment, amendments can be
yeah, sure.
changed.
So I just want to, we can agree.
I don't think it should be though.
Okay, but it can be like rolled back, right?
It could, but I shouldn't.
Okay.
You could take seatbelts out of cars, but you shouldn't.
Sure. So I would argue adding restrictions is more akin to adding seatbelts into cars crashing into wildly places. But let's go ahead and talk about what restrictions we should add on. So would you agree that we should have more background checks, for example, a screen for mental illness?
I think that a screen for mental illness would be rather well. I will tell you that there already is a federal background check required to buy
sure,
all
but
weapons.
It's not screening mental illness, correct? It's not looking at your medical history, for example.
My understanding is it is. Could you fill in on that?
No, I mean, it's not. I'll just say that like the part of the platform currently that the DNC is running on is adding on more background checks, screening for different mental illnesses.
I'll just say actually it does.
Okay,
in what way does it?
I wasn't crazy.
Have you? Okay, well, I won't. I'll talk afterwards, but it does. I only think this is important just because he asked and you just said it's true, but it's what you said.
I mean, it doesn't look into people's medical history, past medical history, correct?
Sure, not something as extensive as looking into someone's private medical history.
That's what I'm advocating is looking into past medical history. That's what the current platform is looking at history of mental illness and screening for that. Would you agree that's reasonable?
I would agree that that's reasonable, but but a follow-up question I'd ask to that is, what mental illnesses would constitute not allowing people to have guns and which ones wouldn't? Because then you get in the dicey territory of, well, you know,
I mean, that would be up to, I mean, obviously that would be up to legislators and individual implementation, and we'd see what would work best. But like, for example, if someone has like a history of schizophrenia or a history of paranoid delusion or a history of like, I don't know, a history of being abusive, stuff like that would be what you would be trying to screen for. Or like maybe indicators that psychologists would say could lead to future spousal abuse, stuff like that. So say like someone hasn't committed abuse yet, but they have psychologists who have screened them and said this person is a high-risk candidate, we should be able to restrict their gun access.
So you wanna put the weight of gun access and that decision upon psychologists?
Yeah, I think that science and like psychologists and professionals who have studied this and know the indicators for what will lead to these mass shootings should be the ones who are deciding who can actually have access to these guns. And I mean, you can make it as bipartisan as you want. You can have conservative psychologists and liberal psychologists on a panel. But I think that psychologists being part of that process is critical because we need to do something unless these gun deaths are going to continue within the United States.
I think a quick look at the polling of college professors and colleges in general would show that
I didn't say college professors. I just said professional psychologists.
Well, yeah, but college professors become
unless you're saying none exist or you're somehow advocating that the field of psychology is partisan, then I don't think you have a point. Is the field of psychology partisan?
Yes, the field of psychology is
based on what?
It's based on polling, right? There's the least.
I mean, the 2 points to that would be one
across the United States, the least partisan college field is business, of which liberal college professors outnumber conservative college professors by 4 to 1.
But that's because facts have a liberal bias. But when we're talking about actual professionals, we can have a bipartisan panel deciding this. And regardless, you already agreed that screening for mental illness is a critical part of gun regulation. How that's implemented is a different debate. We've already agreed to pull back and change the way the Second Amendment
we did agree
works.
that. We also agreed that mental illness is already screened for outside of drawing into a deep personal medical
Let's talk about a different regulation. So do you know what happened in Australia with the gun buyback program?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened with all the mass shootings occurring within that country after their gun buyback program?
They went down at the exact same rate that they were going down before the
No. Mass shootings. There has not been a single mass shooting within Australia since their gun buyback program. No, I'm not talking about the general homicide rate.
And what's
I'm talking
your
about
definition of a mass shooting?
Whatever the standard definition that Pew Research uses.
Because there's a lot of studies out there that define a mass shooting of a shooting of which more than 3 or more people are.
Oh, and you agreed that the homicide rate is going down in Australia, correct?
It was going down at the exact same rate before the buyback.
Okay, so the homicide rate's going down. And we haven't had a single mass shooting, according to data from Pew Research. You can look at however they're defining that. But clearly, it's had the effect needed of stopping these mass shootings, right?
No, I don't agree with
Okay, wait. So what's the negative of the gun buyback program?
Well, the negative of the gun buyback program is, first of all, you have to decide what guns exactly you're going to be buying. Which I can quite imagine that because all of the guns that are currently legal, I would highly advocate should be legal.
Buyback for handguns.
Buyback for handguns. Okay,
yeah.
So if you have a buyback for handguns, would you also be okay with a buyback for rifles, things that aren't defined as handguns?
I'll just argue handguns right now because you can argue rifles have aspects of hunting and stuff, and that's just a different territory. No one uses rifles in mass shootings. It's mostly fully automatic rifles or handguns.
Well, that's also not accurate. Rifles are oftentimes used in mass shootings.
But the majority of them are done with automatic weapons.
Automatic weapon.
Would you mind doing me a favor? Could you hold the microphone for yourself for a second?
Sure.
All right, go ahead. You guys continue. Can someone pass me my notepad and pen? Go ahead, continue.
All right, but if you're gonna make counterpoints to me, you better make it to me and not to a fictional person.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I lost where we were.
Sorry,
so we
continue.
Talking about a gun buyback program. So they had it in Australia. We saw a massive decrease in the amount of shootings in the mass shootings happening within the country. So that's a good effect. So were there any negative effects of the gun buyback program in Australia?
Yes, people had their weapons confiscated.
Okay, and what's the negative of people having their weapons confiscated?
Well, in this case of the United States, it's our Second Amendment right to have.
Okay, no, but I asked for a negative. What is the tangible negative of people having their gun backs? I said tangible positive, no mass shootings. Now you have to tell me a tangible negative.
It reduces people's ability to defend themselves.
Okay, so do you know how many people are able to stop mass shootings with a gun? Because you're saying people will defend themselves.
I want
so how many people stop mass shootings? No, it's a question. Do you know?
Hold on a second. Yeah. You can't do this. You have to let the guy answer the question. I understand that this works in,
I just was pivoting, so I just want.
Yeah, I know you're pivoting, but that's really not something that's right to do.
Because it's question pivot. It's not question pivot.
No, I feel like actually, let's just make sure if you ask a question.
Yeah. No. Go
let him answer the question.
I will not talk. He answers.
Yes, because again, this is kind of like attack and defend, where he stated a position in the affirmative.
Yeah. No. You're right.
You're looking to change his mind.
Yes. True.
Right. You're not looking to just go rat-tat-tat-tat-tat and say that he's wrong.
You're right.
Okay, go ahead. Ask your question, and then you can answer.
How many people stop mass shootings with a gun?
I don't know the exact statistical number on the number of people who stop mass shootings with a gun.
Do you think that it's a lot, or what do you think it is?
I know that for general crime, there are statistics that say that on the low end, there's as many as 400,000 crimes stopped with defensive use of handguns in the United States.
Sure.
That's a wide estimate because it's hard to define that. Mm-hmm. But the low end is significantly higher than the number of murders caused by guns in the United States.
Okay, well, when we're talking about mass shootings, it's 1 every 30 years is stopped by an individual handgun. Sorry, my bad.
Where?
Like in America.
in the United States. One every 30 years is stopped with a handgun. Okay, so
Or with a gun in general, not
with the gun in general. Okay, so we talked a lot about mass shootings.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not 100% familiar with the mass shooting statistics in Australia, but I would like to talk about the United States. And
Well, I just bring that up as an example of where they implemented the program and it worked, right?
okay, so I would like to talk about first of all, let's get back to the United States.
Sure.
And let's get back to murders, because the truth is that mass shootings actually constitute a very, 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 very small portion of the number of gun murders in the United States.
True, yeah.
So the problem I have with the gun buyback program is that it's not actually a buyback, because the government uses their money to buy your guns back.
Yeah.
Where did the government get that money?
From taxpayers?
So I paid the government to buy my gun back from them.
Yeah, in essence.
Which means they're not buying my gun back, they're just taking my gun back. And,
Yeah,
and
I'm
giving
not
me my
arguing
money
this
back
from
to
an
do it.
economic point of view. I'm arguing it for a benefit to society, as in like murder rates for mass shootings point of view, right? And like, sure, you can like argue that I guess the wealthy people or like the top 1% are going to pay a larger portion of the gun buyback, but I mean like, I'm fine with that if you are.
I mean, no, I wouldn't be fine with that, but if you want to say away from
Okay.
economics, I'm fine with that. So, you talk about mass shootings. Can we talk a little bit about just gun violence and
sure.
gun murders? Because again, mass shootings are, if you want to save lives, mass shootings are a very small portion.
Yeah.
So, do you know how many murders there are in the United States committed with guns?
No, I just know that the number's been going down consistently.
It's from 10 to 20,000.
Okay.
All right, the number of deaths from guns is about 40, but about half of that is suicide. So I think we could put suicides aside.
Yeah, well, we can actually talk about suicides later if you want.
Hold
Yeah. Okay.
So
kind of drifting it, so it's okay.
we put suicides aside. There's about 20,000 gun deaths in the United States.
Yeah.
The vast majority of those are committed with handguns.
Okay. Yeah.
The vast majority. So would you propose a system of buying back handguns?
Yeah, that's what I proposed initially.
Okay, so you're not. So would you buy back handguns? So right now, you buy back handguns. Would you also buy back rifles?
No, I said before, I think rifles have other uses and they're not used to commit crimes like you're talking about, or in mass shootings as much as like handguns or like semi-automatic weapons or
So
stuff
you're
like
not
that.
okay with people owning handguns? You are okay with people owning AR-15s?
No, because we can talk about AR-15s.
An AR-15 is a rifle.
Sure, but we're talking about like, I guess we can talk about like specific types of rifles and
Okay.
which ones are more commonly
I
used.
think we're getting a little off in the weeds here.
The point I'm trying to make here is that you're not really advocating for a buyback of a certain type of gun or any common sense gun control in order to get rid of these types of guns. You really want to get rid of all guns, right?
I want to do whatever is going to most decrease the amount of crime within the United States and decrease the amount of shootings occurring. Because something needs to be done, otherwise they're going to keep
And you would say
happening.
confiscating all guns would be a way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, in the end,
they did that in
would.
the UK. You know what happened?
What happened in the UK with
Well,
their buyback program? I imagine the homicide rates kept going down, just like you stated it's occurring.
Immediately after the UK banned handguns, the next 2 years the number of handgun deaths rose, and now since then the number of stabbings and knife deaths has just risen.
Okay, but how many people are killed within one stabbing versus one shooting, right? So when you're talking about, like, say, like, if stabbings is increasing or, like, the number of people being hit by a truck is increasing, those are much, like, less occurring things than shootings, and those are also
You can
much
kill a lot of
less-
people with a truck, dude.
Yeah.
but that
Okay.
happens once
I
in
think
a
we're getting a
while.
little bit off the beam here. Let's go back. Final kind of closing statements. I think what's really important here is the nature of something, right? The essence of something when we're talking about the Second Amendment. So you've talked about kind of, okay, handguns and then maybe rifles and then maybe these sort of background checks, which maybe I support, maybe I don't. The essence of the Second Amendment is what do you two both fundamentally disagree? I'm seeing that you both fundamentally disagree on the precept of the Second Amendment. If that's the case, then a lot of this is just mental gymnastics and pointless. So closing statements, your view on the Second Amendment and why you are pro-Second Amendment.
The reason why I'm pro-Second Amendment is because I don't believe it's the government's duty to protect us from each other, right? I believe that when you take, there's an idea, right? In your line of going off the door, you go to your family, go to social institutions, whether that's your church, whether that's your community, whatever it is, local, state, federal government. The federal government should have very little to do with anything. And I'm not comfortable with leaving the protection of all of us to the federal government. I don't think that they have the wisdom, I don't think that they have the mental wherewithal to decide that sort of thing.
Okay.
And
Good. Wrap it up. Okay, Sean?
Yeah, and so I would take almost the exact opposite point, is that one of the primary goals of government is to defend ourselves. That's like is to protect the American citizens, is to protect us from each other, is to make, but it's to protect the American citizens from foreign and domestic enemies, and it's to keep us safe. And that is one of the primary goals of the U.S. government. And so I think that anything that we can show that can tangibly decrease the amount of violence and tangibly save lives should be implemented, because that's what the founding fathers wanted, is a constitution that changes with the times and adapts to what is best for the people of this country.
Okay, great. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.